Now it's time to put the window back into the bottom frame, this channel here. So you can get new rubber, this glazing that goes into the channel to hold the glass in. And what I've done is I've just treated it with some rubber protectant that will help it to not break down over time and become brittle. So also this rubber grease is good to have in order to help it squeeze into the channel. So what I've done here is basically I've set it up so that it's ready to go. This piece is already prepared, and what I'll do is I'll slide the window in, or the glass in, and make sure the glass mates all the way down to the bottom of the rubber, and then push it into the channel here so that it engages fully. So I've cleaned up the surface of the window here, got all the old rubber off and gunk that was stuck to it. I've got my mark here for where this channel will sit, and so I'll make sure I line that up so that the window sits properly in the frame and goes up and down smoothly. So once that's kind of in place, just have to push it in to engage the entire channel. So it is going on. It's just it's slow going, but we'll get there. Alright, and with a little bit of muscle and elbow grease, the channel is now fully seated in there. And you can leave the extra if you want to make it look clean. I don't know why anyone would care, because it's inside the door, but you can trim off these extras. I think I'm going to on the sides, just because some of these are sticking out. I don't want them to get caught on anything in the door and hinder movement. So I'll just trim off the excess on either edge. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fit the top corner here first. And what I've basically done is kind of angle it into the bottom, and then you kind of have to just really squeeze it in. It's tight. It's a tight fit, so you might need some plastic tools in order to get it into the groove. What I'm doing here is I'm angling, putting the bottom groove in first, and then using this tool to, as I squeeze here, press it into the groove. There we go. And it's fitting pretty well. Alright, so initially it appears that the glazing that is supplied from, this is from Anglo Parts, but I think it's available from many other retailers. But this comes in a 50 centimeter length, which I don't know why they are so cheap and skimp on it, but it should come a little bit longer in my opinion. But it's part 121.061, and as you can see, it doesn't fit the entire window. This side is flush with the edge, and this side isn't. So what you need to do is press the bottom in a little bit so that it holds, and then pull on this top bit, and it will stretch, and stretch it to the length that you need to cover the entire window. So that's what I'm going to try to do now. Hopefully I can get it on camera. Okay, so I've got the bottom in. It's kind of being held in here by this little extra bit, and then I'm kind of gripping it with my hand, and as I press it in or squeeze my hand, I'm pulling the top here to stretch it. Alright, now what I've done is I've gotten it most of the way in, and it's really hard to get it that last, probably half a millimeter. So what I've done is I've put it in between a pair of vice grips, and I'm just letting the pressure work on it over time. I'm just going to leave it like that with some lubrication on the edge of the molding here, just to push it down that little bit to seat it all the way into the bottom of this channel. So I'll come back every once in a while and I'll give it a squeeze. Okay, now that I got the window or the glass into the frame, I'm going to leave it in these clamps here while I go around with a very sharp X-Acto or a blade and cut off the excess all the way around the edge. And this way, while I'm working with it and doing all this and pulling the excess rubber off, I don't risk the chance of pulling the window out of the frame. There we go. I'll just keep doing that all the way around the outside. Alright, here's a tip. Don't do all that work to get the damn window in and screw up the placement of this little corner piece that should go the other way. It should be angled like so. So this piece needs to be flipped 180. This bit goes on the outside. So that was dumb. But it's not as bad as you might think, because you can pry out the window without removing the glazing that you just put in there. Since the glazing is nice and new, I'm gonna slowly pry this out. This piece will come with it since it's under the glazing goes around that bit. And then it'll be much easier to then flip this, obviously, and then put it back into place with the glazing seated in the frame. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'm doing is just slowly taking the frame, the window or the glass out of the frame, and if the glazing starts to come with it, I just push it back into place with the plastic tool. Okay, so now I've flipped this around, and I'll go ahead and I'll put it all back into place. Slide the window or the glass into this bit, and then slide the whole thing back into the glazing, which is still in the window. Make sure you don't catch the glazing, and start to fold it in on itself. Alright, so I got it back in, and now it's the correct way around. And you might have to clean up just a tiny bit of the glazing with the straight edge again, just to make sure, see if any popped out a little bit, but it's pretty clean. So I'll just clean that up, and then we'll be ready to reinstall this. Alright, next you just insert this into the window. There's a small hole in the rubber down here that lines up. Put the bottom corner in, and then just kind of feed it in, and you'll see the little threads will start to come through the bottom if you line it up correctly. And then just line up so that this top bit will engage with this pin receptacle. Now on the bottom here, you just replace the nut and spring. And that just provides tension for the window to open and close, and so that it stays open when you try to vent the vehicle. So you don't want it too tight. You don't want the spring too tight so that it causes too much tension, but you don't want it too loose as well. So okay, next you fix this trim piece here on the corner with the screws on the face, and then 2 sides. On the bottom there's this little foam gasket that goes on as well, so you can put that on here before you lay it into the vehicle. When you're putting on the new strip of rubber here, make sure it lines up with the back edge of this trim piece. Alright, now that I've done 4 or 5 of these, gotten pretty good at doing it. Here's the trick. Put it on the bottom railing first, the metal. So slide it up till the teeth engage the metal. So right there, the teeth are engaging the metal, but the rubber isn't really hooked in. Then grab your tool, place it under there, and pry up on the tool as you're pushing down with a flathead screwdriver, and also pushing down with your finger on the rubber here to keep the rubber engaged with the front of the trim piece. So it's kind of like a 3-way. So you push down to lift up those teeth and pry up. And then once the bottom of it is engaged fully at the bottom here, it should be flush. This clip should be flush with the trim piece on the bottom. There's a little lip here. And then your finger here ensures that it makes a tight seal on the front, and you can adjust it if you need to by prying just a little bit away and pushing down as you do so. Alright, once you're done on the back side with all the clips and you pushed them all down as far as they'll go, then you'll have a nice edge here with the rubber meeting the chrome. And then obviously when the window's in here, it'll push up on the back side, which will further create a nice seal along the front. Okay, the window goes back in the opposite that it came out, so you feed it in 90 degrees off like this, and then you rotate it, and you put this front bit will go in, and then there's 2 bolts or threaded studs, and then the spring, of course. They all have to go in through their respective holes in this chrome plate here. These spacers or washers, there's different sizes, so put the smaller one towards the front here because it might impact with that chrome bar that sticks down in the front. Leave that loose as well. Alright, when fitting this top nut, I found on mine I had to push down pretty hard on this vent window frame in order to get to this bolt to engage with the threads inside there. So Careful on that, and then once it engages, just thread it in there. Careful, try not to drop it down in there because it's not the easiest place to get into. Okay, once the front railing is in, you can see that there. There's a plate which you probably can't make out. You can just barely make it out there. It's gray. I just primered it just to keep the rust off of it. That plate is attached out here with a bolt here, and then there's a nut washer and lock washer that go on the inside here. So connect that loosely. Don't tighten it down yet. I'm going to fit the window inside the regulator and get everything maneuvered so that it goes up and down nice and smoothly before I tighten down anything. Okay, next you gotta fit the glass into the door, so kind of the opposite of how it went in. I've lubricated the channel down there. Now you might have to pull this, the regulator is all the way up at the top position. So the opposite of that we took it out. Now I'm just gonna feel back there for the slides to go inside of the channel. Okay, so this back one I can feel up here, and the back one is slid in. Now the front, just make sure the front goes in there. Next we'll attach the rear channel for the window. So slide roll the window nearly all the way up, maybe 3/4 of the way up, and then slide the channel in through here and position it so that it's vertical over towards the back of the door. Next we'll attach the rear channel for the window. So slide roll the window nearly all the way up, maybe 3/4 of the way up, and then slide the channel in through here and position it so that it's vertical over towards the back of the door. Push forward on the window glass as you're rolling it down to keep the glass in that front channel, and that'll kind of keep it out of the way. So then once you do that, you can maneuver. Right here is the hole that you need to line up with that channel, with the mounting point for the channel. So you just bring the channel forward now that you got the glass out of the way. And now you can see that the threads of the channel are lined up and ready to be mounted. At the top, loosely attach the screw that goes into the mounting hole, and then you can attach the L bracket that goes down the bottom. Okay, this L bracket has a nut on the front, and it goes backwards, so the L faces the back, so the void is to the rear. Okay, so from there you got the adjustment points up top here, down the bottom, and then in the front right down here. So between all those 3 adjustment points, you just have to make the 2 channels angle the appropriate way. There's about 1 millimeter or 2 of adjustability on each one of those. What I found is I had to push the front one as far forward as it would go to lean the front channel, have it as much of an angle back as possible, and then the same thing on the front, on the back one, so the bottom goes to the front of the car as much as it can. And that's a good place to start, at least. And then just roll the window, tighten it down a little bit, roll the window up and down a couple times, and make sure that it goes up and down smoothly and stays in the channel and doesn't pop out of the channel. Okay, once you get the two channels where you want them and it's moving up and down smoothly, just tighten them up. So I begin with tightening up the bolts on the bottoms of the channel. Get the one on the top of the channel here, tighten that one up. Get the two nuts here on the quarter window, and then also the two bolts on the front that go in through the access holes. Okay, the next step is to put in the stop at the top. This one is not the right one for this window frame, but I have a new one on order. But just to show you how this is going to work, instead of waiting for that to come in the mail, just insert the top into the top of the frame, and then the bottom you're gonna have to squeeze that into the channel. So kind of squeeze it. You can kind of lubricate this, but if you squeeze it hard enough and you push it, it will go in to the channel. And then you can make sure that both sides fit into the channel groove, and then practice or adjust the window, roll it up or down a couple times, and make sure that it engages and slides into the groove without fouling. Make sure you don't roll it up too high because we haven't attached the stop yet, and so we'll do that now. Okay, next roll the window down partly, and enough so you can get your hand back into the window or the inside of the door, and you'll install this stopper that we took out. Make sure it engages that the rubber stopper that you put in the top, and it goes all the way up. And then once you got it all the way up, you kind of adjust the stopper so that it hits the arm. Once you got it in the right spot, you just tighten it down. And lastly, we just start putting trim pieces back together, and that's just the opposite of how we took it apart. So put the door panel back in place, and screw the door pull back into place. And put the trim piece top and bottom. And the window reel. And the decorative trim. And on the front of the door, in the door jamb, just these plastic covers that go over the two nuts, the bolts. Okay, the last thing to do is there's a gap created here on the front or the outside of the quarter vent window. So what you need to do is fill that with some silicone. So I'm going to get some black silicone and fill that gap. One quick tip to close out the video here. If you find that when you roll down the window this new rubber is catching on the window glass, polish out the window glass and it'll make it nice and smooth, and then it won't grab on this new rubber, and it won't peel it back in on itself. So that'll make sure that your rubber lasts and it doesn't get damaged right away.